Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. I am here with a layout process video for you as part of the Layout a Day, aka Load project over at Scrap Happy. Full disclosure, if you haven't heard the news, I am now the new owner of Scrap Happy. So this is kind of my transition layout as part of the design team at Scrap Happy over to being the new owner. So today I've got a twist on a family tree idea with lots of interactive hidden elements. So let's go ahead and see how that all comes together. The Load project involves prompts every day, and my prompts were to tell a sibling story, and my mom has 13 siblings, and I've been forgetting some of their names recently, so I really wanted to get this story down. So I am going to try and fit all bios of my 13 aunts and uncles onto one layout, and I'm going to do that using tags, and I'm going to create little pockets behind the layout to slide these tags in and out of. When I first decided to tell this story, I was going to try for a more typical family tree style thing, but with divorces and remarriages and all of these siblings, it was feeling a little too complicated. So you'll see what supplies I choose. First, this set of supplies is newer from scrapbook.com, and then this set of supplies is much older, and I thought that would be great for telling my childhood story. And they both have birds and tree branches, so I'm going to make them work together. From the scrapbook.com set of supplies, there were some sentiment strip dies in there, so I'm going to cut out all of these labels to hold the names of everybody involved. Now this one particular label was too dark to write on, so I added a piece of plain white washi tape to mute the background and give me a surface to write on. Now I realize I wrote down the wrong name, so I will have to go and change that. More on that story later if I can get to it. Alright, the next part of my prompt was to use jagged lines on my layout, and I'm first started off with just using tearing, and then another idea comes to me partway later, and we'll see that in a minute. But this was how I started off with that idea of jagged lines. I wanted this central column to represent my grandparents and their marriages and divorces, because there are a lot of one-step sibling and a lot of half siblings between all of these relationships. And so I have all of these tags ready to put the names on, and the blue for the boys, the uncles, is blending in too much to the background, so I'm going to ink up the edges, and if I ink those edges, I'm going to ink all the edges. I didn't want to smear the ink while I was doing that, but you can see that makes a huge difference between the readability on blue for the background. Another thing I'm doing to link these family members together is using the same paper that I die cut my grandparents' names with to link them to the kids on their biological line of this family tree. So here you can see how I've got all of those pieces now adhered together, and this is also where the rest of the zigzag lines came in. Because I needed to segment this layout into 14 sections, I decided to stitch, and while I'm stitching, I might as well use zigzag stitching. I did go ahead and erase the pencil lines that I used to help my stitching straight, and then I can move on. The other thing I did off camera was get my title going on, and at the very beginning you saw that I had some white correction over some letters that were on here because that owl was saying hoot hoot. So I'm trying to quote unquote erase those T's and just make it say hoo hoo, and I thought that really worked with me forgetting the names of my aunts and uncles. We really aren't in touch very much, and so that is what's going on with why I need to alter those words and tell this story. Alright, so I have got all of my names in place. The next thing I need to do is slice through my base pattern paper so that all of these tags can slide behind. As you can see here, there's a little holding place for the photo, which will be on the front of the tag, and then on the back of the tag, because that paper in particular is white on the back because it's old paper, I can put my journaling and thoughts about each person on that tag. So the first thing I had to do here was a little mathy math. It wasn't a lot, but it did take me a moment to decide what I wanted to do. I am going to mark out all of these lines on my paper, make sure they're straight in between my zigzag stitching, and then I'm going to use a craft knife, and this particular ruler is Tim Holtz, and it has a metal edge embedded in that plastic ruler, so it holds up well to craft knives, and I've had that problem in the past of slicing into my ruler. Not only does that dull the knife, but it ruins the ruler, and so this ruler is solving that problem for me. So once I make sure that everything is cut through all the way, which it wasn't the first time around, I am terrible with craft knives, but I use them when I need them, and so I try and make that better, and then I can get that slid in. I do have a little bit of a challenge of making sure I can hide those tags but still be able to reach them to pull them out. The other challenge was down here at the very bottom of the page, my tag was sticking off the bottom, so I had to fold it and make it fit. And on the back side of the layout, I had to make sure all the tags weren't crashing into each other and tangling each other up. So I decided to create these little, they're not exactly pockets, but these little tabs of paper that's going to help hold things down when I slide them in, so that they will have some space away from each other so that they slide nicely. And really, those were just scraps of paper glued right up to the top or the bottom on the back side of that slit so that the tag would slide in. On the front side of that slit at the bottom, I was gluing on each person's name. And then I'm going to add some twine to these tags. The twine will help prevent them from just sliding down into those pockets. Until it's in a page protector, it's a little precarious, but once it's in the page protector, it should be a little more stable, as kind of the pressure of everything kind of squeezes it all together. And since there's not a lot of room for these ribbons to hang out, I'm going to glue them downward to the tag so that it's still there. It still helps give texture to pull the tags out, but it's not going to intrude on the name that is up above them. And I'm trying to get everything else laid out here with, all the names where they need to go. And then I have an arrow that points out to my mom and her birth order in this whole list of siblings. And that really is the heart of the layout. I am adding a few more pieces here. I have a photo of a portion of my aunts that is much more recent, and I'm going to add that to the front. The photos that I use for the tags are going to be more of the ages they were where I remember them the most, so it's a mix and match of there. I am also creating a spot for my journaling in kind of the same size as that photo, and luckily the gap in the age distributions and of my mom's siblings leaves a space for me to put my journaling, the overall journaling in there. So after that, I am just going to do a little bit of embellishing. I have some rub-ons here from scrapbook.com. These are a newer product, and so it's kind of fun to mix and match older supplies with newer supplies to come up with a layout. And I really thought that owl on there was just hilarious with his little confused face, and I thought that would work well for this older story. And it's kind of nice to use up some of these older supplies that really aren't necessarily my style anymore, but I bought them long ago when I liked them better, and so it's nice to use these up and not let them go to waste. I am getting a few more birds and branches on here with those rub-ons, and that really is going to be the bulk of the embellishing. And off camera, I got a lot of these tags complete, not all of them. I don't have permission to show everybody, but this is my Uncle Joey, and he's passed away already, so he can't give me his permission. In fact, all of my uncles have passed away already. The men did not live very long, and of the 14 total children, only 3 of them were men, so that's quite a lot of sisters on this layout. But here you can see the messy back of this layout, and some of these tags need a little bit more support, I think, and I will do that a little bit later. But again, once they're in a page protector, they should be okay. But this is an interesting technique to use if you need to fit a lot of information onto one layout. So that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed something about this layout process. Maybe it was using up some of that older product to tell an older story. Maybe it was some of that interactivity with the pull-out tags. Or maybe it was just getting an important story that you haven't told yet down in your books. If you want to know more about the Layout a Day project, the link is down here on the screen and also in the show notes, so you can check us out over there. And I'm normally back on a weekly basis with more crafty videos for you. I hope you will join me then, and until then, have an artful day.